Hey y'all, welcome back to the Hack Shack. Today we're going to be talking about a bit of computing history that in some circles has become a bit of a joke. Some have even gone so far as to call it a doorstop. You probably guessed by now, I'm talking about the Sinclair ZX81.
Using them for a doorstop. Perfect doorstop, right? No offense for Clive.
Despite the jokes, the ZX81 holds a special place in the heart of computing history. It's a machine that against all odds brought computing into the homes of the masses, especially in the UK, at a price point that was unheard of at the time. I managed to snag this one at VCFMidwest 2023. I think it's time to dust off this so-called doorstop, marvel at its simplicity, see what it's all about, perform some upgrades, and just, in general, have a good time. So whether you're a ZX81 aficionado... Hold 1 second. I didn't even know this thing was still hooked up. Hello?
Hello, Jamie. Yeah, it's Lee from More Fun Making It.
Lee?
Yeah, hi. Listen, what's up with all this ZX81? That's not what it's called. It's a ZX81. You can't go renaming important historical milestones, so Clive would be spinning in his Sinclair C5 grave.
I'm sorry.
Z, not Z.
Z, not Z.
Z.
Z, not Z.
Z, yes, Z.
Z, not Z. Got it.
Excellent.
Lee,
Yep.
if you have a moment, before I let you go,
Yep.
can you tell me what your thoughts are on the
Z.
ZX81? And, as far as where that played in the history of things and how that maybe gave a shot in the arm to just in general with the computing public and getting things into more homes because of the lower price point and approachability?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can talk to this camera here for a bit if you want. Okay, I'll speak to you in a bit.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Z.
Z, not Z. Got it. Thanks. Bye.
Not Z. Hello, Jamie's Hack Shack. Before I talk about the ZX81, I just want to head off the angry mob gathering on the shores of the Atlantic. This is all just fun, and you can actually call it what you want. Take no notice of the angry internet English police. My first computer was a ZX81, which my parents bought secondhand from my best friend's parents for around $25, or in real money, £25. And when that little slab of black plastic arrived in my own bedroom and was hooked up to a tiny black and white TV I had as a 12-year-old lad, my tiny mind was blown. And looking at the ZX81 through modern eyes, it's hard to imagine why that would be. It just barely even qualifies as a computer and excels only in being a masterclass in clever corner-cutting compromises to get the price to a point where it was cheap enough for the average UK family to start even considering it as their first taste of computers. At that time in the UK, things were a bit grim. Disposable income was not something working classes had much of, and up to that point, none of it would be considered for spending on a computer. We looked across the ocean to the US with great envy, where Apple, Tandy and Atari computers were common household items. Well, Sir Clive, he changed all that, and by the time I was aware of the possibility that I could soon own an actual computer if I worked my parents hard enough, the start of the UK microcomputer revolution was about to kick off. The day I first plugged in that ZX81, my life changed course, and this was something that happened to countless others around that same time. Up till then, I had no idea what the future would hold, but then this came along and I knew it would be filled with wonder and technology. Then, after a few minutes typing in a magazine listing, I ran out of memory. And as much as I have great fondness for this little computer that almost could, 1K really is not enough to do very much at all. The ZX Spectrum soon came along after that, and my wandering eye was drawn to that far superior machine, and the poor ZX81 was packed away in its box, never to be seen again. I remember the running joke that the ZX81 was so worthless it would soon be given away in boxes of cereal. But now I can fully appreciate that my world and many others' world was changed by this little clever, cheap and cheerful ZX81. ZX. Damn it. Bloody Americans.
Before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, PCBWay. Attention all design enthusiasts. PCBWay proudly presents the KiCad Open Source Design Contest. Show off your skills and compete for prizes. Submissions will be accepted through June 2nd, 2024, so don't wait. Just for participating, you can get a Raspberry Pi Pico. Winners will be announced on July 16th, 2024. Check out the link in the description for rules and more information. So let's get my ZX81 on the bench and talk about some specs real quick. This has a Z80 processor running at 3.25 megahertz, 8K with a basic interpreter for ROM, and only has 1K of RAM, expandable to 16K, and technically more nowadays, but that's a different topic. The big thing is that because it was kind of limited, it kept the price down, and I believe that's the cool thing that allowed more people to get their first taste of computing. And you could add on to it, and some of the add-ons, of course, cost as much as the system, but you didn't have to do that at the beginning. So up until this point, I didn't even know if my little ZX81 would work. So first goal was to get some power to it and to get it hooked up with the RF connection to my television. So I grabbed the power supply that I had purchased to use with this and some cables. I was going to try to rig up with this RCA to 3/8 cable here to rig up the power temporarily. And I also got some RF type adapters. I was going to use these to get from the RCA of the Sinclair over to the RF input of my LCD TV on the bench. I had some trouble with the power supply that I bought that I wanted to use with the end that it came with. I had planned on cutting that off anyway, but for this quick first test, I didn't want to do that, and I was going to use it with a jack that I had and put the clips on there to just see if I could get the power working, but it wouldn't fit. So I actually got lucky in this other Radio Shack multi-voltage power supply I had. It would fit in there with the end, so I rigged that up, and it looked kind of like this, and then I was able to verify that it worked. Picked up a new power supply. I was going to just dedicate just to this. This one is a 9-volt 1 amp, and I'm going to cut that end off and put this end on so I can plug it in there. And I've got this Composite Mod board, and I've got this internal 16K memory upgrade. I picked up a membrane on the off chance that this one was bad, but as you can see in the previous part where I was messing around, it seems okay, but I'll keep this as a spare. The one thing is different, of course. This one's got the rub out and delete new line versus enter, like on the, the difference between UK and US, or I don't know any other markets that would have had that keyboard, but that's an interesting difference. Not a big deal, but just noticed that. Oh, and I almost forgot, this is a little 5-volt regulator, like a switching type, runs a cooler. I may or may not put this one in there. Okay, so the first thing I worked on was making a power supply for this thing work. So I just grabbed this power supply from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description, and I didn't really care what kind of plug it had as long as it had the right voltage. So I grabbed some of these mono 3/8 connectors, and I just cut the end off of the power supply, separated the wires, stripped them, soldered the thing on there, crimped it, and finished putting the end together and gave it a test, making sure that the tip was positive and that the lower part was negative, and that seemed to look okay, so that was good to go. My next task was getting this thing opened up to move forward with the other modifications, so that was pretty straightforward. Just flipped it over and did some screws. Had to remove this 1 foot for a screw that was under there, which does remind me I need to maybe get some other feet to replace those. Next, I just had to remove 2 screws to get the board loose from the top half of the case, and then it was just a matter of gingerly removing the keyboard cables from the board, and the board was free. Next, I performed the Composite Mod. I found this nice little kit from a guy in Canada on eBay. I grabbed that, and it arrived, and I was ready to stick it in here and pretty much just open up the RF modulator can, and I was going to remove the whole thing, and it was going to be kind of a pain. So you'll see here, I basically disconnected what I needed to, and I ended up just using some double-sided tape to kind of isolate it, and I put the Composite Mod just right in there, and I closed the can back up and gave it a test. I was a bit freaked out when I connected things up and saw these moving lines like this, but then I thought to try a different cable just in case, and then it ended up looking like this, which made me feel so much better, and I cut that cable so I wouldn't accidentally use it again. And here's a quick shot of what it looks like up close with those new wires going into the can up to the new composite board. With the Composite Mod sorted, I knew that next I wanted to get some extra RAM into this computer, and you can always use one of these add-in old school packs that kind of wobble around, but I saw that there were some projects where folks have made a non-wobbly internal RAM modification. And the listing's not there now, but this is what I got off of eBay. It was the bare PCB and some header pins and stuff. It didn't have the RAM chip, but this was for a internal 16K RAM expansion for the ZX81. And then I also got a couple of these pieces of RAM, which it's 32K, but you're only using half of it. I think there are ways and things you can add on so you can actually access the full 32K, but I just wanted to use the 16K, so these are the memory modules that I got. So here is the bare board and one of the memory pieces I was going to use on it. And obviously you can see here it's surface mount. So I started with a little bit of flux down both sides and positioned the chip and kind of tacked the corners, I believe, and then just did a little drag soldering. And I'm going to speed things up. Basically it's just the chip, the headers, there's one capacitor and one resistor. After I go through that, you'll see me put the headers on, and then it'll be time to actually look at the machine again. Next, I shifted focus back to the board. My first goal was to remove the chip from the socket that was there, and then my next goal was to remove the socket in as safe a way as possible. I don't have a fancy desoldering gun, so I was just really trying to be patient. I used some flux, and in some cases some extra solder, and solder braid, and 2 different solder suckers, and you'll see all the junk I went through to try to get this thing out of there easily, and ended up cutting the socket from the top into a couple of different pieces there near the end to finally get things out without damaging anything. And thankfully, I did not damage anything. I didn't have the correct size socket to do this, so I grabbed 2 sets of header pins and decided to use that kind of as a pseudo socket, put those in place. So I got those soldered in, then I got the chip in, and then I had to connect these 3 connections at the bottom of this PCB to 3 different diode points below there, according to the instructions that came with the RAM module. Next, I connected things up to give it a test to see if it booted up, and, well, I went back and checked and rechecked everything. I used my multimeter to make sure that I had continuity from the little surface mount leg all the way through to the end of the pin to make sure I didn't have any bad solder connections. All of that stuff looked good. I was not really sure what was going on, and I couldn't use the other module I bought out of the pair because look, one leg here was snapped off. So what I did was I first backed things out and put the 1K module back in just to make sure that was okay, and that powered up and tested all right. That got rid of my worries about me totally messing up the machine somehow. So then I went and ordered another set of similar RAM and then tried that out. This also failed to work, which left me wondering, and maybe you out there might know, do either one of these memory modules have a problem working with the ZX81? Did I just make poor choices, or should these have worked? I did have a backup plan though. When I ordered that other surface mount memory, I also ordered this more traditional dip memory, and I did so based on this blog post from Tynemouth Software, and it showed a way to use, a full-size 32K dip type module, pulling out a few legs to the side and soldering those down to some diodes and using that as a 16K upgrade. So with this chip, I just followed the instructions from that blog post, bent out the specified pins, pushed it in, made my little pieces of wire and soldered those from the fanned out legs down to the proper diode points as the instructions told me to do. I connected up the composite and power and saw the K that was missing before. All right, we're gonna put power in, and you'll see, like the documentation says, it takes it a second longer to see the K as it's testing more memory. So it's white for a second, then we see the K show up. Based on this, I went ahead and rigged up the keyboard so that I could try to type in the command that was shown to verify that the RAM was okay. Yay! 32768. Did I get it in there? There it is. Whoops, I didn't get it in there. There you can see it. There you can see it. I had the top of the screen cut off. So 32768 is what that output was, which is what we expect. With the RAM sorted out, I wanted to check out and see if I could load some software through the tape port. I'd used my MP3 player in the past for this exact purpose with things such as the MC10, so I thought I could use that here as well with the ZX81. I found some things that I wanted to try out and found some software to convert these files into WAV files that I could load on my Sansa. I then cabled things up, looked up the commands to use to load something non-specific, and gave it a shot. And I had some false starts and thought things were working, but they never did. And it took me a little bit of time. I even went through as much trouble as hooking up my scope to pin 20 on the ULA to ensure that I was seeing signal from the tape port into the device. Then I made this discovery. I just edged out this connector a little bit. And as soon as I did that, things looked okay. This turned up. This in here. That. Let's do load. And then I'm going to hit play. Oops, and now I shouldn't hit play yet because I need to hit enter. And then I need to hit it. And let's see if that loads. All right, so there I got Tetris up. And I'm going to stop this. And then I'm going to see there. And you got your things here. Let's see, rotate. So this is pretty cool. This shows you that it's kind of working, so I'm going to focus on getting this thing back in the case and we will go from there. And one thing I've done since is I've got this 1/8 to RCA adapter, and I'm using a mono RCA to 1/8 adapter, and that works consistently every time, no problems. I discovered when I was getting ready to put the thing back together that the keyboard was no longer working, so after 40 plus years and my added stress of doing all this stuff, I had made it inoperable. So I just decided at that point that I needed to go ahead and replace it with the one I had, even though it had the slightly different wording on a couple of keys. Yeah, I think I screwed it up. So, oh well, it worked for a little while. Gosh darn. So I don't have a hot air station, but I do have this hair dryer, which does blow hot air. Let's see what happens. I want to see if I can get this to loosen up a little bit with some heat. All right, there's that. You can see on this one is the one I think I got goofed up a little bit. See these? I think these two right here broke on this end. The other keys were working, but it was just some. So I don't know. I'm gonna heat this up and see if I can get this off. Wonder if this was replaced before. Probably not, right? Was there ever a problem with folks like putting power in the wrong one, or did it have some kind of protection against that, or did anybody ever cook anything by plugging the power into something? Just wondering. That remains has quite a smell to it. Whew. Oh my gosh. If I can get that off of here, this is a lost cause. Not perfect, but I think that's mostly clean there. Clean enough. Clean enough for me. Let's try and put this membrane in here and not fail horribly. I'm just going to do a little test fit. So that part goes kind of in there, right? Can't get it out. There we go. All right. Let's see. Let alcohol rise relatively quickly. Sure, I'm gonna goof this up, but let's go. There we go. There's that. All right, that looks like it's in there. All right, let's get this thing put back together. That's that. So now let's make sure it still works. Fingers crossed. All right, so we're starting off, and now we're gonna plug the power in. See, it takes a little longer than stock. Should come back with the K. All right, so I'm going to take an MP3 player here. See if we can load up the Tetris game. So I got Tetris right here. So I'm going to get ready to click on that in just a second. So I'm going to do the whole, let's see here, load, and then that. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to hit that. Screen goes blank, and I will fast forward until it loads up. We'll see if it works. 2, 1, ta-da! Did it do anything? Yay! All right. So we got Tetris here. Let's give it another quick play and see what we get. All right, so yeah, we got K, L, and S rotates and D drops. Oops. Here we go. Oh, I thought I was over one more. Anyway, all right, so you see it's working. I think I showed before, I want to play with 3D Monster Maze. I've got that loads up, so I'm going to play with that some later, but probably not right now. So that was pretty fun. Got this thing that I didn't know if it worked or not, verified it worked, used the RF at first. Once I verified it wasn't completely dead, I went ahead and we did the Composite Mod. We added some RAM. I had a keyboard that I didn't think I was going to need, but we ended up needing the membrane after all, after opening and closing it a few times. Rigged up a power supply for it, and also rigged up a way with the MP3 player to play some converted files and load those games in. We proved that that works, so pretty cool. And I want to make sure I give a big thank you to Lee for helping me with the little fun part in the beginning. At least I hope it was somewhat fun. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.